the National Soccer Network, and it is the Three Amigos now on the show. Used to be the show once upon a time. Was we welcome in Boss Man, John Turner. What's up, my man? Welcome back in.
Well, good morning, guys. How are you?
I'm all right. How about yourself?
Doing good.
I understand you want to talk a little bit about pay for play.
Well, I'm not so much about pay for play as it is that right now is the World Cup is just around the corner. The conversation about how this country, how we compare ourselves to other countries and how we develop talent and how we find that talent, all of that is kind of coming to a head right now. And we're seeing individuals, we're seeing clubs, we're seeing teams, we're seeing a lot of different people and groups talking about pay to play. We've heard it from Landon Donovan. We've heard it from Alex Lubianski. We've heard it from a lot of different players and former players and coaches. And what is the right way? What is the right way to go about this? And more importantly, what are we even talking about? Because I feel like there's some confusion in pay to play at the levels that are being talked about. And I think it's important that we discuss that. We saw a video again here yesterday from our friends at Detroit Metro, Alex Lubianski. He posted this video a few weeks ago, but it's confusing, and I think it's important that we talk about this and try to uncover what he's trying to talk about.
American soccer is built on a fake pyramid, fake youth system, fake senior system. Everyone sees it, nobody fixes it. So I brought a real European senior model here, and I explained the system so parents can actually see what's happening. I've got no skin in youth. My team has no age floor. Arrive hungry, leave for the pro game. Nobody pays to be here. We pay our best players via NIL. I'm not selling anything. No franchises, no territories, not just for billionaires, though better for them than the MLS. This model financially outperforms everything else in this country. I acquired and operated a professional club in Europe, generating revenue from sporting merit. That's an impossible task under the current American model. That's why I am stepping outside of it to reshape our broken model, European model on American soil, and we are giving the blueprint away for free. I built a law firm from scratch into a top M&A firm. I'm fixing it in real time. I don't need any approval. I've started 25 companies. Most of them failed. Some of them did not. Every one was worth it. I don't possess false modesty. I know I am unique, and I cannot be bought. I didn't start this to look cool, and my kids don't get a spot, no matter how good they get. You might hate it, doesn't matter. I'm building it anyway.
First off, very
very
passionate. Yeah, he did. And I think it's important to state that we talk about this all the time internally. Just in Michigan, there are many opportunities to play post-college, right? Only right now, one currently that is professional. There is another one in Grand Rapids that's about to make its way in, right? And so there'll be two opportunities. We don't see any more opportunities professionally in this state to play soccer. And so you can only play pre-professional, post-college. And ultimately, the different levels. I have a friend who's 44 years old, who plays still co-ed soccer in Nashville, Tennessee on Wednesday nights, right? Still having fun with that indoor, whatever, the fun aspect of soccer, what post-college, right? And then you've got
a little far past post-college.
Yes, but again, like there's understanding kind of like where you might want to fit into, the whole idea, okay? Because I think that there's different buckets you can be putting yourself into. One, there's a fun bucket, right? I mean, we've all played on a softball team maybe in the summer, co-ed or whatever. There's some fun ones, and then there's some really competitive ones. And so there are, in every city in this country, there's probably some kind of a rec program that offers an adult soccer league. You go, you can't slide tackle, and there's red cards for this, that, and the other. It's not designed to be competitive in the sense that you would in a USL or USLW environment, right? In Michigan, there's the Michigan Premier Soccer League, MPSL. That is like the governing body of the recreational, just above recreational, competitive soccer in Michigan for adults. I think it's governed by MSA, the Michigan Senior. I think Michigan Senior or Soccer Association, Michigan. Yeah, so it's governed by that, right? And so then you've got all these travel competitive, right? In Michigan Midwest Premier League, you've got USL League Two, USLW, UPSL on the men's side, and then you get onto the actually now there's APSL, right? That's new, and then the women's side you've got USLW, UWS, and one team in the WPSL, right? And so that's what you have, and so, but if you look at a player like or a team like a Detroit Metro, you're going to have players on that team that probably play in all those leagues, right? If you're a good enough player, you're playing in USL2, you're playing in, and you know this, Nathan and Ryan, you guys call these names as much as I do during the summer. You see a guy like Jody Lopez, right? He's been everywhere, right? You see like other players that we could
UPSL DCFC team.
Yeah, I mean, we saw how Flint City. We saw this Arpachinda, right? He played for Union FC Macomb in the USL2 season last year. He played for Flint City in the US Open Cup, right? And so there's players that go all over the place. They just want to play, and I think there's a lot of players that just want to play soccer at a competitive level, and there are players who are trying to climb and get to the next level. They're trying to actively do that, right? And there are certain clubs, certain teams that create an environment where that becomes more plausible, more possible than others. And Flint City is a prime example of that, right? They have created an environment where if you come to them, which again, that is the most senior team in the state of Michigan, would be Flint City. Yeah. There's not a single player that pays to be on that team. Okay. They are housed for free. Their entire summer costs are covered. Okay. There's not a lot of teams that operate that way. And so I love Alex's passion. I love what Alex is doing here. And I think Alex, great. And I think that what Detroit Metro is all about is great. With that being said, there are other teams that are currently doing this. Union FC Macomb, they are a youth club in the Nationals that have now created a pathway for both men and women to continue their pathway post-college, post-youth. And players aren't paying to be in that environment. And so I think it's important to say that there are a lot of clubs out there that do not charge to play in their adult, environment. And I think that's why I want to kind of separate this, because Landon Donovan's not talking about UPSL. Landon Donovan's talking about MLS Next. He's talking about ECNL. He's talking about players who are paying when they have been selected as one of the best players in their area and are playing on one of the best teams. And why are they paying for the best when they're going to go someplace and they're going to get scholarships? That's what he's talking about.
So maybe we should probably talk a little bit more about the youth game, because obviously the pre-professional, that's more of, I mean, it's kind of professional. It's all you're getting it's kind of like scholarships in a way. So should the pay-to-play focus be more solely on the youth game, the ECNLs, the whatever other RLs, L leagues out there, three-letter abbreviations, rather than the UPSLs and the USL2s and the USLWs?
I think from a pre-professional standpoint, I think first and foremost, probably 99% of those teams are losing money. They're losing money. To operate a team in the UPSL during the summer is going to cost between $20,000 and $25,000 for the summer, right? That's a lot of money. And so if you're not asking players to contribute to that, you're losing money, right? And so I think that's first and foremost. And so whether you decide to pay or not pay, or it's free or whatever, you can only survive in an environment where you're losing money for so long. And that's why the attrition rate in these leagues is like every 5 years, 100% of the teams that came in are gone. Right. So put that in perspective, and so they're gone. They disappear. If you look at the Detroit UPSL Midwest East Conference, the only team that's been there consistently over the years and been there for a long time is Detroit United. Everybody else is new or has been new, and they don't exist anymore. Or they've gone down to the MPSL. They don't play it. It's too expensive to operate the team. Okay. And so while I appreciate the idea of not being free, if you can't generate enough money and revenue from sponsorship, which is the single hardest thing teams have to do, you're not going to be around anymore. Okay. So that's important. On the player youth side, I think that there's an important part to this, right? It's parents. Parents are always going to want to put their child, in the best position possible to be successful. And that means travel, that means coaches, that means gear, that means whatever. And now not every parent can do that. But if you said, hey, mom or dad, or if money is no longer an issue, what would you take your kid to do the give them the best opportunities? Would you try to put them in that place all the time? And I don't think there's a parent on earth that would say no to that. Right. So the question becomes, do they have the money to do it? Right. The question becomes, do they have that? And so I think that's where we have to start. The clubs are not, as far as my perspective and what I understand, they're not governed by anything. They're self-governed. And so the club is going to go out and say, hey, we're going to charge $4,000. Well, this club charges $4,000. This club over here charges $2,200. This club over here charges $1,900. There's not like this thing in which, we've created an environment where everybody is paying the same thing for the same exact level, right? Like if you came out tomorrow, ECNL, and said, hey, you know what? If you're an ECNL team at U17, it's capped at $4,000 a player. I think that would change the landscape completely.
100%.
Right? All right. So I think that if you just did something like that, that would solve a ton of the problems that we're having across this. Because right now, or hey, travel. Why are we traveling to Los Angeles, California twice a year when you live in Michigan? You're telling me we can't find soccer over here that would be equally competitive? But they do have the regional tournaments, but that trip costs $10,000 to send a family to, And so I think that there are things like that would definitely make the environment better. But the argument is, and when it comes to the MLS Next Academies and the ECNL, because that is the your top level youth environment in the country, and players like that Donovan were saying, well, if you're selected for that program, you shouldn't have to pay at all, right? The problem if you're not paying is, and I was talking about this with Ryan earlier today, is that if you are paying into something, the chances of you being involved are greater than if you're not paying, right? The best example of this is that I give you $10,000 and say, here you go, go do whatever you want with it. We are all going to run and do things differently with that $10,000. Some of us might blow it on one transaction, right? If you win the lottery, oftentimes people win the lottery are broke after a certain amount of time because they don't know how to spend the money because they didn't earn it, right? And so I think there's something to be said about spending money or investing money in your children. And so it's just from my perspective, it just has to be governed more. We have to have some kind of regulations that prevent there from being clubs charging $17,000 for a season when club over here is charging $4,000. Like what's the difference? I mean, in 1999, that might have made sense because there weren't a lot of great coaches out there. But today there are coaches everywhere that you could argue are very, very good at what they do. And why are we paying that? I think the other part of this too is that as a former coach who coached at the club level, I was given money based on the amount of players who played on my team. And so if I had 12 players, I made less money than if I had 17.
Really?
Right? Yes.
Wow,
And well, yeah, because they took the player fees. And again, I don't know if this is true still to this day, but that's how that would be. I would get at the club level, if I had 12 kids, multiply that by whatever their number was for the year, I would get a portion of that number to cover my what I got paid for the team. And so if I got paid $5,000 a team, well, I would get that based on a 15-player roster, not a 13-player roster. And so there are coaches out there that know that, clubs that know that, and that's why you have dual rosters. That's why you have 17 players on a roster sometimes, because you want to make a little bit more money. You want to, hey, this is my livelihood. I want to get paid. And so I think those things all play into this. But I think the biggest one to take away would be the governing aspect, regulations where, hey, if someone could come in and cap it and say, you can't go more than this as far as what your annual fees are, or, hey, you have to pay travel costs. Like that's all you're paying for is travel costs. I think that would eliminate some of what people are saying when it comes to pay to play. And that might do it. But then again, the MLS academies as well. The true MLS academies, Columbus Crew, you're not paying to be in that academy. If you are selected to go to Columbus Crew's academy, was it Columbus Crew 2 or Columbus Crew, their youth academy, and you're in the 15-year-olds, those 15-year-olds are not paying to be there. They are sent to Columbus. They are housed with, I know you call it. There's like a name for the housing that you stay with family.
Host family?
and yeah, host family. Stay with the host family. Thank you. A host family, and you're going to practice and you're doing all these things. You're not paying for that. It's not. No one's paying that.
No.
The clubs are paying for that. So, but you Michigan Wolves, who are an affiliate of Columbus Crew, you are paying the Wolves to be in their program.
He talked a lot about his experience in Europe in that video, and it's interesting when we look at the disparity, I think, between clubs, like you just mentioned, that sometimes is people's biggest issue. Not necessarily that you have to pay, but just the disparity between clubs and the amount of money it is. Are those systems in place in Europe? I mean, not that you would know everything about how they develop players in, like, let's say England, but what kind of measures do they have in place that we don't have here? What is it exactly that he's referring to, the game in England or the game in Europe, that isn't the same when it comes to the youth sports here in the U.S.? Because from what I saw, it was about $250 a month, but I don't know if that's necessarily all the way across the board. It could be different depending on where you go.
We've got to stop comparing ourselves to the European model. We are not Europeans, and so if we were, we would. We wouldn't be talking about this right now, right? I'm sorry, but we are the largest. We are one of the largest countries in the world when it comes to land mass, right? With our people, and so there's a lot of things that are at stake here. But the most important one to take away from all of this is that in Europe, soccer is the number one sport. Period. End of discussion. Right? Like nothing even comes close. I mean, what are you going to go to on a Saturday in Europe if it's not a soccer game? You're probably going to a pub, right? So what else are you going to do? I mean. But I'm saying that in the United States, you have so many options. If you're an athlete who's 10 years old, and the chances are of what you're rooting for, I remember as a kid, even I played soccer. I was in my garage in the middle of the wintertime with a hockey stick watching the Red Wings play, and I'm shooting pucks into my net in my garage. Yes, back when it was Hockey Town, right? And I'm envisioning myself getting the game-winning slap shot from the blue line, to win the Stanley Cup.
Okay.
And hockey isn't even the number one sport in this country, but I was thinking about that then. And I would imagine a lot of young athletes are like, man, I want to be, throw the game-winning touchdown or catch the game-winning touchdown, in the Super Bowl, or it's the bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, bases are loaded, you're down by 3 runs, get a walk-off home run. I don't know how many kids in this country are going, man, I want to be the game-winning penalty kick taker in a 0-0 game in double overtime or, in extra time to win the World Cup. I don't think people are thinking that way at 10 years old in this country.
I did.
No. So I think that's comparing ourselves to the other, but again, in Europe, if you're a 10-year-old, you have a soccer ball, and you're thinking about hoisting the Premier League trophy, Man City, whatever city town you're in, right? That's what you're thinking of when you're that age. We don't think about that here.
Yeah.
And if you are, it's like the fifth thing you're thinking about. And hopefully 5 or 6 years from now, 10 years from now, that will change. But when it specifically comes to pay to play in this country, you pay for everything in this country. And everything. I mean, every week I get a new letter from my kid's school about something I got to pay for, a field trip, that, or, a T-shirt for this or whatever. We're paying for everything. I don't know what that's like over there in Europe, but if you're paying for everything, in Europe, you don't tip. There's like a tipping process. The servers are paid well enough that you go into the restaurant, there's no tip. I mean, here I tip everywhere now. I mean, to get a coffee, I got to get 20%, and then they're asking me on top of that. It's like
I hate that I go to like a fast food place. They're like, tip? No, no, you don't get a tip.
Yeah,
I just think that they're again the clubs. This is probably going to be really controversial, but clubs are kind of like churches. It's like you go to church, right? And you're trying to get but what is it? Church is a business. I said this all the time when I was selling advertising. Yep. Church is business. Church is money. Church is absolutely. I go to church and I'm Christian and all that kind of good stuff, but it's a business. They want you to put money in the thing every week. It's about the money. They got to operate. Clubs They have to operate. In order to operate, they have to have money. And how to get the money? Well, they start off with you at little tykes when you're like little juniors and you want to play at 5 years old, kick a ball around now. And then, hey, now you're in the door. Oh, now you want to play travel soccer? Great. We got that option. And here's this. It's a business. And so if you don't like the business side of it, then you're going to have to, good luck. Because everything we deal with is business in this country. And if we look at other sports like basketball, AAU, I think players are paying. I think they're paying to play AAU. I don't think that's free. But to be fair, in high school basketball, high school football, high school baseball is actually where a lot of these players are in fact being recruited. Right? Because their baseball seasons, their travel baseball, their travel football, their travel basketball all come to an end during those time periods so they can excel in the high school environment. But a lot of recruiting happens as a result of those environments. I'm not saying you're not being recruited in AAU. You absolutely are. But again, those seasons stop. You go play basketball, and then you go on back to your league after that. And so I think volleyball is the same thing, but you're paying to be in those environments. And so I think saying to not pay is not the responsible way to approach this. I think what the responsible way to approach this would be one, and I keep saying this too, that our biggest issue in this country is identifying talent. That is our biggest issue. It's not so much about finding talent, it's identifying talent and then finding and getting that talent to go to the next level, right? To push them through. Because what happens is clubs and coaches and parents and all the emotions involved with all this, people start to get their feelings hurt. And then they're like, I'm not going to recommend that kid. I'm not going to push this kid. I'm going to push that kid over there. Nepotism is a real thing. We're seeing it in the MLS. We're seeing it in the World Cup roster possibly. So I think all that is real. But I think that if we want to really change the environment in this country, I think you have to create caps, right? You can't no more than X. And then I think the other part of this is that once you've identified a player that you believe to be an excellent player, we as a soccer country, a soccer environment, we have to do everything we can to get that player to where they have to go in order to get the best. And if that means no cost, if that means clubs are helping divvy up money, whatever it might be, but that would be the responsible way to handle this.
I really hope now Drewski makes a sketch about youth soccer like he did mega churches. I think that'd be hilarious. That's just me though.
Yeah, everything. Well, and I'll just say, I think the economy impacts everything too, regardless of sport or wherever we are. Sketch. So I think, a Drewski sketch would be funny. But John, we appreciate you stopping by and taking the time, and a lot of good points there, a lot of good stuff to chew on. So we appreciate you.
I appreciate you guys for letting me come on here. Geez, Pete's, it's been a minute. It's always fun to kind of come on and I used to do this every day with you guys. So I'm glad that you guys are rolling with all the great stuff. So appreciate you hopping on. I think it's important as my last point here. I think it's important to say that the system in itself is very broken. It's very broken. And to have these kind of conversations, I think will help us get to a point where, hopefully one day we can all say, hey, it's way better or much better for that matter. And I'm excited to continue to have those kind of conversations here in the future. So.
Absolutely. That's JT on Inside the Game.
Yeah, I will say, I think the best comment during all of that was Dave. Self-service checkout. Do you want to leave a tip? Dude, I see that all the time. I see it